In this chapter, we're going to prepare the back. That means we're going to put our interfacing on, and then we're going to close the shoulder seams for the lining and also the shell fabric. First, we're going to strengthen the center back where we're going to have our placket, and that's for the buttonholes. And I'm just checking which side is the right side because we want the underside to face up for this. We're going to iron on the interfacing, leaving out the seam allowance at the neckline and at the waist. And then I'm also going to mark where I'm going to fold over. So that's where my interfacing goes. So I line that up, and it doesn't matter that it doesn't go all the way to the edge. If you have a roll of interfacing like I have, then please use it. It's very, very good. And again, it's always good to not have all the interfacing in your seam. Now I'm going to fold it over exactly along that line. Another little trick is to not have the interfacing exactly on that line, but maybe a millimeter over, so it doesn't kind of make the line where you fold it over too thick. At this point, I'm going to put on my interlining. So I'm going to just pop that on there and secure it with a few pins. I strategically put one at the shoulder, one where the underarm is. You don't need to overpin this or sew this on at all, just like that. And that will make the white silk not be so see-through. I've done it on both sides. Now it's time to close the shoulder seams. Place the shoulders on top of each other. Right sides have to be facing each other. And again, please remember that we go by the lining for the front piece and not by the pretty trim, because that can easily be distorted. The lining, if cut correctly, will be exactly where you want to put the shoulders together. And I'm putting some pins in which sit vertical to the seam, because then I can just sew over it, and because I've got more than just 2 layers in there, that's a good idea. You can of course also put them in with the seam. And I'm also going to put the seams of the lining together, as you can see here and there. It really doesn't matter how you put the pins in. Horizontal with a seam is fine. Let's hop on over to the sewing machine, lock in your stitches and sew this together. 1 centimeter seam allowance, by the way, on all my patterns. I always do that 1 centimeter unless I tell you otherwise. Don't forget to lock in your stitches at the end as well. Just push the next pieces under straight away so that you waste as little thread as possible. And there we go. We just need to iron those seams apart. The next thing we need to do is to sew the lining to the back, and that is where people are sometimes not quite sure. So let's just have a look at what that looks like finished before we start. You can see here that our placket, which is for our buttons on our buttonholes, is actually turned in. So this width here is way more than the lining, okay? And some people found that difficult when we did the testing to get their heads around that. So just remember that this part here is actually folded over. So what you want to do is attach the lining to that upper material, and then it's just turned in, and that gives you that beautiful finish. Let's get going. It's not difficult. Let me show you how. We're going to sew the lining to the back, and that means you just put the lining on top of the back piece, you know, around the neckline, and then you can see that the lining is way shorter, but that's because of course the placket will fold over. So you just have to move your back piece over onto the lining to sew it together, right? So lift it over to make this fit. And then we pin it, and that will be sewn with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Let's do this on the other side as well. Swivel this round so you can see it better. And again, you move that shorter piece of lining onto the end here of the back piece. Right sides are still facing each other. Of course, it's very, very simple. Pin this together and then we can sew it with that 1 centimeter seam allowance. There we go, last pin. And then I'm going to demonstrate to you very quickly what it looks like when it's sewn. And please do not worry that the shoulder seams aren't on top of each other, because the magic is going to happen now, of course. When we fold this over, it will all be absolutely perfect and just fit how it should fit, right? So it's not that hard. I hope that this trick will really be something that you carry forward to all your other projects where you're making bodices, because this is the way to do it. It's really simple and it looks really good. So hop on over to your sewing machine and now sew this together. And again, we have that 1 centimeter seam allowance. Take the pins out as you approach them. And now I'm going to take my second back and put it straight under so that I don't waste any threads. Good habit to get into, really. Don't forget to lock in your stitches at the start and the end. And now I can either iron the seam apart straight away, or I can iron the seam flat first. Beautiful. And when I turn this now and give this a jolly good press, it gives me that beautiful result that you can see here. And that's it. Wasn't so hard when you know how, right? Let's get on to the next step now and close the neckline. See you there.